Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. I am Shazed Ahmed and today I am taking 14th class with BS 5th in the course of 14th to 18th century poetry. So in previous lectures we have discussed about John Donne, we have also covered Geoffrey Chaucer. Now in this lecture we will discuss about the contribution of Edmund Spenser, who is considered the most prominent poet of Renaissance or Elizabethan era. So we will discuss about Edmund Spenser, and we will also discuss about in upcoming lectures about the piece of literature written by Edmund Spenser, which we call the Fairy Queen. So Edmund Spenser was born in 1552 to 1553, so the date is confusing, so we will go with 52 or 53. London, England. Died in 1599, London. So his era was completely in between, like from the starting of Renaissance till the end of Elizabethan age. So we will consider this writer Edmund Spenser as Elizabethan poet. Okay, so a little is certainly known about Spenser. He was related to noble Midlands family of Spencer, so their family name is Spencer. As like we have Khatak, we have Khan, we have Afridi, we have Bangash, so their family name is Spencer, whose fortunes had been made through sheep raising. So they were मतलब ये जो है वो sheep को जो है वो बड़ा करते थे और उनसे जो है उनके पैसे आते थे. His own immediate family was not wealthy, as we have discussed in Philip Sidney's lecture, that he was a well polished person and his family was of great wealth. He had great wealth, but in contrast, Edmund Spenser was not wealthy as Philip Sidney, and he was entered as a poor boy in the merchants tailors grammar school, where he would have studied mainly Latin with some Hebrew, Greek and music. So here when got to he get to the school, grammar school, merchant tailors grammar school, so there he learn about Hebrew language and Greek language, as well as he also learn about music. In 1569, when Spencer was about 16 years old, his English versions of poems by the 16th century French poet Joachim Dubelli, and his translation of French version of poem by the Italian poet Petrarch appeared. So he has translated, or he has his own version of Joachim Dubelli's and Petrarch's poem, which has his first contribution towards English literature. Furthermore, he was influenced by different eras or different people in poetry. So Spencer's period at University of Cambridge was undoubtedly important for the acquisition of his wide knowledge, not only of Latin and some of the Greek classic, but also of the Italian, French and English literature of his own and earlier times. So at Cambridge University he used to study not only about the Latin language or the Greek classics, or about the poetry of Greek or Latin, but he also started to read about Italian, French and English literature also of earlier times. So in earlier time there was a writing of Chaucer as well as Gower, and we have also Anglo-Saxon writing in which we can say that the writing Beowulf, which was written by anonymous writer. His knowledge of the traditional forms and themes of lyrical and narrative poetry provided foundation for him to build his own highly original compositions. So we will in upcoming lectures we will discuss that he has arranged, or he has contributed to the English literature in a way that he has his own meter, or which we call the Spenserian stanza, which we will discuss in upcoming lecture. Without the Roman epic poets Virgil Aeneid. So we have discussed that Virgil was a Roman epic poet, and we have also discussed that he has written a masterpiece which we call Aeneid, the 15th century Italian Ludovico Ariosto Orlando Furiosa, and later Torquato Tasso. Now this word is pronounced as Jerusalem, and you might have heard about Jerusalem, that is in Palestine or in Israel, जो कि एक्चुअली हमारे पास जो है वो इस तरह का लिखा जाता है, यरूशलेम जे से स्टार्ट होता है, लेकिन ये इसका ओल्ड वर्जन है तो इस वजह से ऐसे लिखा हुआ है. So Spencer could not have written his heroic or epic poem The Fairy Queen. So because of Virgil's Aeneid or Ludovico Ariosto Orlando Furioso and Torquato Tasso's writing, he would not have compiled the work The Fairy Queen, or he would not have written The Fairy Queen. So we are studying different influences on Spencer by different writers of his time or from of his previous times. So without Virgil's Bucolics and the later tradition of pastoral poetry, I will tell you in a next slide that what is pastoral poetry. Without Virgil's Bucolics and the later tradition of pastoral poetry in the Italy and France, Spencer could not have written the Shepherd's Calendar. So in first slide we have studied that he has written Fairy Queen, which was in response from the writings of Virgil, Aeneid, and some other writers. And here we are studying that his pastoral poetry, which is the Shepherd's Calendar, it is his second work which we are studying. So he wrote this work, and he was inspired or he was influenced by Virgil's or other Italian and French writers. And without Latin, Italian, and French example of the highly traditional marriage ode and the sonnets and canzone forms of Petrarch and succeeding sonneteers, Spencer could not have written his greatest lyric, Epithalamion. So Epithalamion is generally the poem which is written about marriage. So we call it Epithalamion poetry. So Edmund Spencer has written Epithalamion, and it is a marriage poem, and the influence which he get from Latin, Italian, and French, and after that he has written Epithalamion. The pattern of meaning in Spencer poetry are frequently woven out of the traditional interpretation. It is we will also discuss it upcoming lectures that Spencer was highly motivated or highly influenced his by different writers, and he have followed the old version, the archaic version of words, and he used to use these words, the archaic word, the old world, throughout his poetry. So developed through classical times and his own of pagan myth. Pagan, we have discussed that those people who do not believe in one god. So as like we have discussed, Vikings were pagans, and we have also discussed that Anglo-Saxon were when they came to England they were pagan. So pagan myth, the divinities and philosophies, and out of an equally strong experience of faith and doctrine of Christianity. These patterns he further enriched by the use of medieval and contemporary story, legend, and folklore. So he has contributed, he was first influenced by different writers, as well as he has contributed different in a different manner to the existing work. After that, there are different example of writings of Spencer. The Shepherd Calendar, his first writing, and after that he has written the Fairy Queen and Epithalamion and Immorati. So these are the most important or the most famous form written by Edmund Spencer. Now in next lecture we will discuss further more about the Fairy Queen, and we will also discuss other type of poetry which was the contribution of Spencer to the English language or English literature. Thank you so much.